And so with that, I invite you to close your eyes. And the reason I ask that is to remove the distractions from what you physically see in your world, and you can deepen the connection with your inner world. As you close your eyes, you get to connect with what is happening in the inner world. And that's where the magic happens. There is multidimensional DNA within you that responds to your intent to connect. And because we are gathered together, we are sitting within each other's field of energy. And as we deepen our breathing, the rhythm of our breath becomes synchronized. And as our breath synchronizes with each other, the beating of our heart becomes entrained. And as we entrain, we create a field of coherence. We are in coherence with each other. And our intent to do this together as a group is so that we can raise our awareness to what is possible, that we can connect to our divine essence, the core energy that is connected to the unified field. And so we merge into each other's souls, supporting us at the most incredible times that we find ourselves in the beginning of the year 2022. And we are able to plant seeds of peace, harmony, balance, love, gratitude, appreciation, kindness, patience, tolerance, understanding, and compassion. And these seeds that we plant will continue to grow and blossom. And we will meet opportunities that we can practice mastery, where we simply observe and respond with compassionate action. And in doing so, we become the lighthouse that others are seeking. We become the light without even saying a word. We simply emanate those qualities from our being. We radiate the core energy, the core essence. It radiates out, front, sides, top, back, and bottom of your being, to everyone who comes within your field. And from this beautiful place, let us now receive the wisdom and the teaching and the loving messages and guidance from Cryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Cryon of Magnetic Service. There are so many, even those in this room, a while back would not accept that which is channeling, and maybe they still don't. Every single human in the room is participating in a partial truth. Everyone. My partner mentioned that your own scientist had acknowledged that there are many, many dimensions. It's more than that, dear ones. they still want to number them. They still want to identify them and put them in a mathematical equation, not understanding that they're all together in a soup of dimensionality, which contains that which is God, which contains that which is spirit, and all the things that those of you in the room might think are supernatural. And they're not. They're natural. The partial truth you all live in is this one. There are things you will accept and not accept, based upon that which is around you or you've been told. And to have that which is channeling be accepted is a stretch for many. And here's why. Even though every single one of you and anyone listening to my voice later is able to do this, which is called channeling, most of you are told that it's evil or inappropriate, and that it's impossible for a human to simply sit down and speak to spirit in this way. One way or another, having received it or transmitted, you've been told that it's beyond your abilities, or perhaps you're even unworthy. I want you to examine right now what you were told. It's still in your subconscious to some degree. What are you able to do? It's in your subconscious to some degree. What is it your body will not allow you to do because it's in your subconscious that says it's impossible, or what you've been told? This is what you deal with. A partial truth for all of you. And that is that veil which you speak of. Let's talk about the veil. This veil that so many will claim is the wall between themselves and that which is grander, that which is spirit, that which is God, that which is angelic. There is a wall, a veil, something there called a veil. Some will say, well, that's what God put there to separate the majesty of the divine from the human being. And that's also what you were told. And what does that tell you about who you are? That is a simple statement. It's an innocent statement. Demeans the human being. You realize that, don't you? There's a wall between the Creator and you called the veil. And then there are rules to get through the wall. And you believe them, never understanding that the veil is something you have created in your own personal life. Dear Spirit, you might say, I wish to remove the veil or move it. I want to make it thinner. I want to reach through it and touch the face of God. I want to know so much more about what I am able to do. That is so loving and so compassionate and so innocent of a request. And yet to some, they will say, my subconscious will not allow it. I can't get through the veil, even of my own creation. That's why we're here. This is an awakening time for humanity. And the awakening is not to new ideas necessarily, although they're happening. The awakening is not necessarily to that which is starting to show itself as something you should look at or perhaps correct. That's happening. That's not the main awakening. The awakening, truly, human by human, is to how magnificent you are. I want to give you a picture, as I've done before, many times. And the picture is this. It's our picture of you. We stand next to you. There are helpers who come in at birth with you that you cannot see. How does that sound? So many of you see them when you're children. Identify them, play with them, give them names. And then you're talked out of it by your parents who are absolutely solidly in 4D. And then they go away, but they don't go away. They're real, and they stay with you. Every single human in the room has these helpers. You can call them what you want. Multidimensional beings, almost angelic, that are here to help guide you. They're guides. They help guide you. If you ask. If you ask. This is the design. Think of the love that went into this. The human comes into this earth with free choice to see everything or not. To get beyond the narrative, if they wish. And all that time that they're working the puzzle, the entourage that came in with them, designed to help them and guide them into beautiful places, just stands there, waiting, all your life. And if you never call upon them, and you never see them, or even test the idea that they're there, they go out with you. These are from your soul, dear ones, and they are the same ones every time you incarnate. The same ones. They're your best friends, who some of you say you've never met, because you've never reached out your hand and said, "Show me." You've never reached out, perhaps, your mind to say, "Are you there? Let's work together. I'll be patient." These are things that are simply not done intuitively. Until now, something is happening. You might say that for the entire population of this planet, and it is, the veil has lifted slightly. There are more taking a look now, where they didn't before. But it's always been the same. You come in with free choice, no bias. God is not there showing you and saying, you ought to come this way. It's not the way it is. The free choice is a system, a test. And that is a test of light and dark, and the result of that test enlightens or darkens a planet. And this one is coming into the light. Others have done the same. And that's why we get so excited to let you know the good news that you may not be aware of or sense or see in these times. We told you these times were coming, and they're here. It was no accident that you now have a pandemic. We told you things would change. So many expected a world war. You have I would say, the attributes of a world war. The shut-in, the shutdown, the economies, all of that a war would have created without the destruction of the infrastructure. Think about it. It's all here. And we said it would be. And it's pushing and pulling people apart and together as they start to examine what is important to them and why they believe what they believe. And that will continue for some time. The result at the end will be something you didn't expect. A unification of truth that you didn't expect. Now, that's the first time I've said that. These are the things that have happened in the past and that are winding up right now to happen very slowly on this planet. Light is here to stay. If it were not, this would never have happened. Did you realize that? It simply would have continued the same. There are so many who expect the worst, who would say, here it is. Well, I expected the worst, and here it is. Right on schedule, right on time, the worst. And they say, well, we're not going to get through this. It's just going to be like everything else. History repeats itself. We'll go into certain areas of politics and war, and it'll simply be the same. I hope we get through it. Woe is me. That's their truth. Let me give you another picture. Does this feel like it used to? Does it feel like history is repeating itself to you? Or does this feel absolutely brand new and a bit strange? You answer that in your mind. And if it feels brand new and a bit strange, that is the shift. And I'll tell you, it has a silver lining. There's something that so many of you have never done or never tried. You've tried positive thinking, you've tried affirmation, you've tried all manner of things. But I'll tell you what my partner did that worked. This entourage around you loves you so much. It's waiting for one thing. For you to trust it, that it works. To cognize it, that it works. To hold out your hand and say, show me. When my partner sat down in the chair 32 years ago as an unbeliever, but startled with some things that he saw, that made him sit in the chair saying, there has to be something else here. I'll give it a chance, but only for a moment. And as he sat down in the chair, he didn't believe anything would happen. But it's what he did. And he did it intuitively and almost as a joke. And he said this, if you're there, whatever your name is, show me. I'll tell you that there was rejoicing at that moment of the entourage who almost couldn't believe their ears, if you could say ears. It sent ripples into his life because there was a chance that he'd see it and that he would follow a life's lesson that he had planned for himself. Something that said that you will awaken to a larger truth that will come upon you in your mid-40s, when many are thinking about planning on retirement. A life would start that would continue and continue and continue, and thousands would be affected. He said, show me. And when he sat down in the chair, and we've told this before, he wept like a baby. He wept. He was so startled that this happened, he thought there might be something in the chair. He got out of the chair, got back in the chair, and he wept again. And he realized there was a cause and effect relationship when he sat down with intent to know and said, show me. He got something he didn't expect that made him look. Did you hear that? He didn't get the resolution. He didn't get everything he wanted. He didn't find out about Cryon. But it made him look. Something so startling that he didn't expect. And as he looked, things got better. For he met people he should meet. And his life started to move into areas that they never would have moved in before. Because he gave allowance for it. There was no spontaneous remission of belief for him. But when he said, show me, and got the response, that's what started a ball rolling, a slow one. Many of you work that way. You're expecting the healing to be instant or this to be permanent immediately, not understanding it might be a series of events where you meet people, or even doctors, or healers that you never knew were there before, or never meet before, because you said, show me. I want to know this is real. Show me. But there's more to it. You can't just have the words there. There's got to be a word that doesn't exist in English, and we use the word cognize. It's the best word you have, but that's not the word. This word does not exist in your language. When we say, do you believe in gravity? It's laughing. What do you mean, do you believe in it? It's there. When I jump up, I'm gonna fall down. That does not have a word. It's a kind of a belief. It's a cemented belief. There is no way you can unbelieve it. Gravity is always there. And it's always there no matter where you are on the planet. So it's not about believing in it or even rewriting your truth. It's simply always there. So we say you've cognized gravity. Have you cognized the love of God in your life to the extent that you know there's a hand outstretched, waiting for you to be shown? And that perhaps this veil of your own creation is keeping you from seeing the kinds of things that were always there. Even though you tried, You couldn't push that veil. You couldn't do it by yourself, no matter what you did. And that's when you should sit down and say, show me. Because that's when Spirit may do something through coincidences or meeting others that you didn't expect. And then if you're paying attention, you'll go, aha, this is out of the ordinary. I'm being shown. And follow that path. And that's when those guides, those angelic ones that you are with and have been, can start to do their work. And it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. The plan is the plan. And even if it's only for the last years of your life, it's beautiful. And the plan is the plan. If you look, the things that you will learn in this lifetime, the things that you will awaken to in this lifetime, are different from any other lifetime you've ever had. Because you sit in the shift. You sit in a different magnetic field. You sit in a different awareness level. Because of that, let me tell you something. It changes that which is etched into your DNA that you call memory. I'll tell you something that I have told so many people before. Perhaps you ought to hear this. There is a system that was presented today called reincarnation. And what made the display today with the video you saw so startling is that here was someone who remembered. But that's not common, is it? Let me tell you what's going to happen when you return. Dear ones, you're all returning even though you don't want to. I know who's here. You don't want to because you don't want to go through this again. I don't blame you, dear ones. What if I tell you now, when you return, everything you have learned in this lifetime at some level will stay with you in your DNA, so you never have to learn the lessons you learned this time around again. They are part of your knowledge and your wisdom, and in you will come fresh and new and young with all that knowledge intact. You're going to be a handful, but that's who you're going to be. And that's the plan, and always has been. Those who awaken now, working through the shift, solving the problems, going through the difficulties, becoming lighthouses, all of you, when you return, will have that knowledge. You may not know who you were, like Jimmy Leininger, but there will be some sense that you know how things work, and you will not make those mistakes. That's part of the energy of the shift and the multidimensionality which so many deny is even there. There has been a shift, a multidimensional shift, in the system even of spirituality. This is a shift where those things that had been so solidly invisible start to appear. Where the ideas which had been tucked away for so long start to emerge. There will be things starting to happen that you wonder, where have they been for so long? They're so simple. New systems that would appear that you would say, where has that been? It's only a matter of those thinking about it to make it happen. It's almost akin to over 200 years ago when your country started. And you had the idea of a constitution and a Bill of Rights and all the things that were so different. And they were so opposed because they were so different. But they were so radically good. The ideas were so amazingly accurate. You might even say they were channeled. And your country at that time started and became one of the greatest and one of the biggest. And one of the most envied because you'd figured it out, how you could live together and have the abundances that were there because of the rules, because of the system that a few men put together. What if that could occur again in several areas, in physics, in politics, in systems of governing? There will be a country that starts something that you've never seen before, like your country did. And you will look at it and go, could this work? And we've talked about this before. And it's not here. It's not even on this continent. Dear ones, things like this can happen. There are new ideas, believe me. You right now lay in a cauldron of old energy even still when it comes to ideas and processes and how things work and what to do. And when you get past this, which you call the pandemic, that's when it all starts to happen. I'm giving you information that I've given in pieces and parts in other times, in other ways. But all to tell you that you sit on a gold mine of energy. But the ones who are going to know it and do something about it are the light workers, the ones who sit here, the ones who hear this, the young people as well who are now coming online, you might say, with a whole new perception of what they might do. Most of the young people in the past went through the schools that taught them how things worked and who they would be and who they should be. And that's what they did. There are those who study history and say, well, that's the reason why history repeats itself. There's never been anything new taught to them. And so here you are with an idea that stagnates and is taught over and over and over. Are you surprised that nothing happens? And then suddenly there are new ideas. And even if they're rejected by those institutions that teach, they're still all there intuitively to be manifest. They don't need to be taught in school. Listen carefully. What I'm telling you is that there are those like you who are coming back in this planet right now in the very condition I told you you will be when you return. There are old souls coming back, knowing very much that they start at a level that they left off when they passed over. And you're starting to see their influence as young people when they start to reject that which they're taught because they know better. They're rejecting the old energy because they know better. And these are the ones that developed and will develop some of the newest energies on the planet. You haven't seen them yet, not all of them. But you'll know when they arrive because they will turn upside down so many of the things that have always been there or the way things always have worked. Can you imagine a time where the church is not the church you knew? Where it doesn't fall over. It simply becomes more aware of the love of God and starts teaching it differently. That's what churches are here for, dear ones. That's why they exist, to try to educate you into that which is the beauty of the love of God. And so far they've been in the dark too, unaware. And their test will be when the truth arrives and they see it very, very clearly. Can they change their doctrines slightly, a little at a time, and come up with that which is what you know, that there is a system of God that is bigger than anything that's being taught on the planet at the moment. And when they see it, and when they understand it, and they can teach it, that will be a day you didn't expect. And you'll see those things start to change too. Has there been anything on this planet that has happened that got your attention? That you didn't expect? What about some systems that we've talked about for a very long time? I'll tell you that they were systems of darkness. Systems that kept women sequestered in certain strata. Systems that made women behave a certain way or do certain things if they wanted anything at all. Have you seen anything change with that? And how long has that been going on? And the answer is yes. Suddenly, they're being believed when they report abuse. Suddenly, the justice system is believing them. Suddenly. Where did that come from? You think that's an accident? Is that history repeating itself, or is it new? I've told so many. Did you expect a new pope when the old one's still alive? Did you expect the new pope to start cleaning up that which has been happening for hundreds of years with the priest abusing kids and acknowledging it and talking about it and trying so hard to battle the old energy within the church? That's not history repeating itself, dear ones. Things are afoot that you don't expect, and there is more coming. It starts to unfold slowly, so you don't acknowledge it. It doesn't make the news like you expect something would. It happens slowly, and then you realize it's happening. But dear ones, every single thing I've spoken about is the light coming out. That's you. That's you acknowledging that there are those around you who love you, that you're magnificent, and that you can guide your own life in your own path, in your own reality. In certain degrees, so many of you have always done that to some degree. But this is new. It expands everything you thought you were. And everything you thought you knew, light worker, even if you have been metaphysical for 50 years or more. This is new. You can do more. You can accomplish more. History is not going to repeat itself even in metaphysics. All these things I speak about, there's more. I'll discuss it later. We have got 3 more days. I am crying in love with humanity. I bring a message which is not always the one that people believe, but they will later when it starts to happen. Until then, God is patient. And so it is.
So with that, I feel inspired because we can create a group coherence. I think it would be inspiring that we can send compassionate light to cultures where compassion is seen as a weakness. Is that okay if we collectively focus on that intention? And so if that becomes our intention, I invite you to close your eyes and soften your body, soften your face, your shoulders, your arms and hands. Relax your back, your abdomen, your thighs, your feet. Feel everything relax and allow your breathing to soften. And be very slow in inhaling and very slow in exhaling. And as our breathing rhythm begins to synchronize, the beating of our hearts become entrained so that our hearts are beating in unison. And as we connect with the energy of our heart, we're connecting with the energy of each other in the room. And because we are powerful co-creators, we can use our consciousness to send energy. And in this collective coherence, let us just send energy out into the field so that those cultures that see compassion as weakness, we're sending them energy of benevolence and love. And just imagine a bubble of benevolence and love descending down upon a culture that doesn't quite understand that compassion is a beautiful strength, and that compassion is an automatic action that we have towards each other when we understand that each of us holds a spark of the divine. We are scattered jewels containing pieces and parts of the divine spark. And we're just feeling into that bubble of love and benevolence descending down upon cultures that see compassion so that they may view things from a different perspective. And they will receive the benefit of what it feels like to receive someone's compassion. So we send into that bubble the allowance to receive love and compassion. And in that bubble, you also are giving allowance for yourself to receive love and compassion. And so in this bubble we're all sitting, let us now receive the love and compassion that comes through the messages of Cryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Cryon of Magnetic Service. I am fully aware of where I am, where you are. Spirit is not in a vacuum and never has been. It's one of the things that you're not told. Those of you who grow up in this particular culture and that in so many areas of the world are taught from the beginning that you are, again, apart from God. And that the idea that perhaps God knows you and what you're going through and your issues and perhaps what you're feeling doesn't occur. You're never taught that. Instead, you're taught that you have to go to a certain place or do a certain thing in order to get even noticed, and even that perhaps through someone else. The truth is this: inside you, even inside that multidimensional part of your DNA, is a connection to the creative source. Here's why. You've heard that each of you has a soul. It's common verbiage all over the planet, even used in nautical terms on how many souls on board. You know about souls. But when you start asking the question, what is it? It's a hard one. And the reason it's so difficult is because the truth is this: your soul is eternal. And every single lifetime you have comes from the one soul. Its soul doesn't change. Does it make sense to you that God would have created this beautiful, wonderful soul of yours and then destroyed it when you then passed over? That's what you're taught. And then, of course, after that comes judgment. That's what you're taught. Doesn't it make more sense that the soul would then be a vehicle of expression? That is to say, beautiful, loving piece of the Creator that it is, not apart from God. Your soul is connected to the soup of God. All that is that creative source that you want to call God has your soul in it. And that then becomes part of the vehicle for the expressions. The expression is the name of a lifetime that you have. I sit in front of old souls, almost everyone in the building. There are 4 exceptions. And the 4 exceptions simply haven't been here on this planet with enough lifetimes to be called old souls. But they're learning what old souls know. That is changing. What if I told you this, that the school of souls, that is to say, you come into this planet, and then you come in again and again and again, it builds up that which is the learning so that you could become someone who awakens and understands, because you've had all the experiences on this earth and been through so many things. But what if suddenly, in this new energy, other things are starting to occur? What if you have some souls that have only been here a few times? They haven't had the experience. But something is happening where they are starting to assimilate what you know. And they're becoming old souls in the attributes of their lives, but they haven't been here long enough like you have. Now, what's that about? This will be called the Lighthouse Channel, for what I'm about to tell you. Early on in the Cryon work, we established a metaphor. It's always been a metaphor about light and dark, always, because that is what you understand the most. It's such a perfect metaphor because you see in the light and you don't in the dark. And in the darkness is where you expect evil things, and on and on. So it becomes the metaphor, a pretty good one. Not only that, illumination is the other one that has always worked for us. And one of the first lessons we gave, the first time we literally were in front of a crowd, we talked about the dark room. The room is dark, many humans are in it, and they don't trust each other, and they can't see one another. And so they huddle in groups and compete for the things in the room. They don't trust one another to the degree that they think others are going to attack them and take their resources, and so they attack back or first. And I've just described human history for eons. Suddenly someone finds that miracle thing that creates some light, a match perhaps. And they illuminate it and light a candle, perhaps. And in that candlelight, even a little bit, so many people can start to see. And as soon as they start to see one another, they realize they're alike. And they start then to be able to talk to those because they can see them now. They're not out of sight and out of reach in the dark. And that creates things like trade and trust. And then they will say, well, what have you got there that has caused this? You say, well, it's a candle. And they say, well, I've got some wax. Let's see if I can have one too. And on it goes and on it goes. That's the metaphor of spreading your light. Or the whole idea that a little light in a dark place goes a long way. The other metaphor, of course, is that light is active and dark is passive. That is to say, the definition of darkness is the absence of light. You don't open a door and have darkness spill out. It's the opposite. So you can see where you put light, darkness cannot exist. Great metaphor. And it shows you what's going on the planet. When you have a revelation, such is happening right now and will take place, it's like turning on the lights in a room that has been dark for 100 years or more. And when you start shining a bright light there, everything stinks. Everything is dirty. And you see the dirt from 100 years. And most of us, meaning you, meaning on our side as well, will not tolerate darkness. And the first thing you want to do is clean it up. Because it's where you live. It's where you exist. And so that has always been the metaphor of dark and light. A little later on in that, which is the career of Cryon, about 16 years ago or more, we started to talk about the old souls of the planet being the lighthouses of Earth. And that brings us to this space right now. We sit in a historic building, all of us, that is connected to the buildings around an ancient, if you want to call that, lighthouse. When I say ancient, a lighthouse that existed before electricity. Many did. What did they do there and how did they do it? We'll talk about that in a moment because we have a metaphor of the lighthouse. But let's talk about the initial metaphor of what a lighthouse is. because we started calling you light workers. Light workers and the whole name of light workers has not been around that long, dear ones. You won't find it much 200 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 50 years ago. It's a term that many started using only in the last 20 to 30 years. And it refers to a human being who truly works with light. And just the metaphor alone tells you what we mean, but what if there was actually light that a human could work with? In a way, there is. And that light becomes the consciousness that you develop that emanates the mastery that you study. The ability not to react, the ability to observe, the ability to have that which is the countenance of a master, slow to anger, quick to respond in kindness and compassion, and that gets attention. Quick to laugh where joy is always there, where a smile is something that you're proud of. That particular individual creates other individuals around them who are attracted by their light. So the metaphor of a lighthouse goes like this. Lighthouses are useful when? At night. So the usefulness of a lighthouse has always been that which is at night. And the premise is this, that the ships that travel into the port depend upon the lighthouse to keep them off the rocks. They depend upon the lighthouse to steer them into safe harbor. So the lighthouse becomes something very interesting. The lighthouse keeper, the one who strikes the light, is never known. And thousands of ships in the night will take a look at that and go to their safe harbor, never knowing or seeing the lighthouse keeper. And yet the lighthouse keeper knows what he or she is doing and is careful to always keep the light bright and clean and working so that those ships will see it and know it. They also know that if the light goes out, many are in trouble. That's the old soul. If you go to the lighthouse on this property, you will see an example of what some people will call hardship. It was not back then. It was simply duty. It was simply the way things worked. If you were a lighthouse keeper, you had a lot to do. In order for the mechanism itself to work, not just to show the light, but to spin around so that it was seen very clearly in 360 degrees, a set of weights and balances, like a clock, had to be wound at a certain time so they always worked, and so the spinning would be accomplished. There was no electricity. So you might say the lighthouse keeper was the only one who could make that work, not the electric company. And so the lighthouse keeper constantly had to be aware of what I will say, winding the lighthouse. In addition, that which made the light, the fluid, whether it was the kerosene or something else, it always had to be lighted. At one time in history, it was whale oil. So it has come a long way, but the lighthouse keeper always had to make sure there was enough of it in order to keep the light working. So that particular lighthouse keeper, which is the metaphor of a light worker, has a lot to do. Dear ones, let me tell you something. If you get to a stage where you feel you're shining your light to your family, to others, to the rest of the planet, to anyone, it's not permanent. You got to work at it. Some people say, well, I'm trying to have my joy factor 24/7. Good luck. Human nature is human nature. And there are some things that will keep you from being joyful when you're in pain, perhaps, or in fear, perhaps. And you have to wind that clock to understand, to get back to that place where you can start to show that which is the God part of you, keeping the light lit, just keeping it shining. That joy factor, yet again, is the light that you have. Just keeping it always shining is not possible. There are times when it goes out, when you're not necessarily in your best way. We know that. So that means that being a light worker is difficult. No one expects, no angelic entity looking at you would expect that you would get so far above human nature that all of you would be masters. That's why we're here. Those guides that you have, that's why they're here, to help you wind the clock. That's why they're here 24/7, because when you don't feel up to it, that's when you can take their hands and feel something that we invite you to feel. Something you think might be esoteric, but it isn't. It's in 3D. In a way of reaching up and taking the hands of your guides to infuse you with peace, with a feeling of safety, with lack of fear. And in the midst of even trial and turmoil, the ability for you to be compassion and kindness is there. That's what makes the difference. So just knowing what you know does not mean you're a lighthouse. Just being an old soul does not mean you're a lighthouse. What it is knowing what to do when it doesn't shine right, or when the clock isn't working well and the weights aren't turning it correctly. That makes the difference. And so we give you these things so that you know that help is always there. You are connected to your soul. That means that all of you are connected to the creative source in a very permanent way that your culture has talked you out of. Let this be the time that you would examine yourself and ask that question. Is it true that I'm connected all the time? Is it true when I don't feel like it, or I don't feel like my light is working, that I can get help? And the answer is yes. Then you start developing the method, and it's not the same for everyone. It just isn't. Every one of you is unique and different. How do you feel when you get that connection? That's different for everyone. There are some now that are so used to that connecting, they can actually describe the chills or whatever it is for them. Others say, well, it happens during my sleep. Others say, I have to stop and be quiet, and then I realize it. And others are so used to having it, they simply turn their heads and wink the right way. And in come the guides, because it's their signal, because it becomes the way of their life. That is a light worker. This particular channel is for those who have difficulty, always being in that joy, in that compassion, in that kindness, because it's not always there, perhaps in your family or the people you're with. And it becomes something you say, well, life beats me up, and it's tough to continue. There are things around me that make me sad, and that makes it hard to be joyful. And I'm telling you, you can create a bubble for yourself that doesn't isolate you from anyone. It isolates you from fear. It isolates you from the dark. It isolates you from heart hurt, if you wish. It's always there. It's an invitation to learn to use it, to take it. It is your birthright. It's why you're here. Did you ever wonder why now? Why are you in the shift? Why are you going through things that are so very different? And the answer is because you signed up for it. You really did. At some level, you knew it was here and coming. And that means that your tool set has also gotten bigger, and it's right next to you. Learn how to use it. You're going to live longer. Because if you are in joy, your body is healthy. If you are in a state of compassion and kindness most of the time, your body doesn't age as much. Disease will not attach itself to someone who is balanced and joyful. Did you know that? It just doesn't like you. There is a dark and light balance of disease. Disease is alive. It has energy. Some even say that certain viruses and bacteria have a consciousness. Now, that's not exactly true, but it does have a sense of what it will work with its host or not. And that's why some people that you know never catch anything. Is that the first time you've heard this? I want you to know there are a lot of things at work here that you were never told. Not every single human being is the same, even though your organs are in the same place. Not every single human being is the same simply because they can count your blood or look in a microscope and see you're the same as the one next to you. Well, you're not. And it ought to give you an idea that you're not, because your consciousness, which is energy, is unique for every single soul. The bodies that you develop, how you think, what you do, all has a place on the planet that is seen by the environment around you. Very interesting when it comes to disease. Dear ones, I want to tell you, consciousness is the key. How many of you, in closing, have known those who are invested in the dark, who are so unaware they pull bad things to them on a daily basis? You'll also know that they don't live that long. How many of you know or have seen a hypochondriac who's so afraid of catching everything out there that eventually they do? Not just one thing, but a cascading events of diseases and troubles and aches and pains, and eventually they die. I just described to you the power of consciousness and the way disease and bad things work. It's almost like you open the door and allow things to come in. People who are victims are this way, who say only bad things happen to me, not understanding that statement alone goes into the ethers and into the field, and the bad things they're afraid of line up to occur to them. And those who would say, I am on a path of light, a path of health, those who expect those things to happen to them which are beneficial and help them and the others around them and their families, seem to have that and bring it to them. Law of attraction, some have said, it isn't. It's the energy of consciousness. You studied it today. My partner talked about it today. This is what we want you to know in this Lighthouse channel, that the energy of light creates a situation where darkness cannot exist. Maybe it's time to wind that clock a little. I'm crying in love with all of you. And so it is.
And with that, I invite you to close your eyes. And as you tune in to the frequency of your body, if you imagine within you a crystalline structure that is listening and attuning to every vibration and frequency that you create. The sounds that come out of your mouth, the vibrations it creates in the air with the words you choose, are programming the crystalline structure within your body. What words do you choose to use in your daily life? What words do you choose to use to others in your daily life? What vibration and frequency do you wish to program within the crystalline structure of your body. And the crystalline structure within your body also responds to the energy you vibrate from the core of your being. When you are in the vibration of joy, laughter, and happiness, the crystalline structure within your body is feeling that, recording that, holding that memory. When you have periods where you have grief, anger, sadness, your crystalline structure also feels that, but the energy of love and joy and happiness has the ability to neutralize that emotion. The inappropriate emotions within your body are able to be neutralized by surrounding it with love, joy, and happiness. So if you imagine laying foundations for your crystal, imagine that every time you have joy or laughter and happiness and compassion, you're adding a new stripe within your crystal. And in this new energy, we are being attuned to the crystalline field of the earth, and the light-dark ratio of that crystalline grid has changed. There is more light on that crystalline grid than what there is darkness. And as you attune to the vibration and frequency of the Earth's new crystalline grid, you have a resource there you can connect to in those moments where you can amplify the joy. Because joy is sacred. It is one of the core teachings from the Pleiadian star mothers. Joy is sacred. And if you can sustain joy, you will live longer. If you can sustain joy, you will chase away any disease within your body. And so let us all hold on to that frequency, that vibration of joy, that child life that we have within us, where everything is in awe and wonder and magic and holds infinite possibilities. And from that place of infinite possibilities, let us welcome in Cryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. You might have noticed something that we've spoken about, my partner has spoken about. But there are those here who need to hear it. My partner does not prepare for channeling. And many do. There are those who have to prepare and take a few moments in order for them to go from one energy to another to receive what they're receiving. This has been very, very common through the ages of those who would channel. Even the shamans will do that sometimes before ceremony, to get rid of that which they consider a worldly countenance and go into that which they say is a sacred countenance. It makes sense. You might notice my partner doesn't do that. It was some years ago when I told him something that he then equates and relates, and I want you to hear it. And it has to do with the shift, and it has to do with the energy. It has to do with you. I told him it was time to go to the next level. He was disappointed because he thought he was at the top level. This is very human to not understand that the top level, he would vanish. He would ascend. He would disappear. That's the top level. When mastery is not even enough, and you go into a place and a time where you cease to be human and go back to your soul, that's the next level. That's the top level. And he asked what it was that I was talking about, and I said, "You're playing church." And he said, "What does that mean?" And he said, You say I'm playing church. I have nothing to do with church." And I told him that he shows up and channels, and then he gets off, and he's Lee. And then he shows up and he channels, and then he gets off the stage, and then he's Lee. And I said, it's time for a meld of mastery, so that the Cryon energy is with you all the time. And like you were turning on a water spigot, you simply turn it on. And it's there, and the source comes from that which is in you. And at that point in time, he said something funny, which is very common for my partner. He asked me, would it hurt? And I told him he'll live longer if he does it. I told him he'd be healthier if he does it. I told him all the cells of the body are waiting for it. And he did that. And it took time for him to understand what the meld meant. But he changed, and he was a different person at that point. My partner has gone through a number of phases of changes, just like you have. He's never done, dear ones, just like you are never done. And in that, it is an example of what we are saying even to you today. Do you come to a meeting like this to respond to the energy and to feel that which is the love of Spirit surging through you and the information warming your heart, and then you leave without it? Until the next meeting where you do the same thing, and it becomes something that feeds your soul. There are those also who are what I would call New Age information junkies, who simply want new information, and it seems to feed that intellectual of theirs. But it stops at that, and they never then receive that which is the love that goes with it, or the message that goes with it. And the message is, take this information and change your heart. That is the whole reason for this, all of this. All of the joy, the fun, the laughter, the instruction, the feeling of the compassion, the love that I would present to you, all of this is a package that challenges who you are and the meld that is possible. The mountaintop experience is what some of you have in this experience, and that is to say, it's a high for you to be here. It's a high for you to be in the presence, perhaps, of the channeling and the channelers, those who are with the family of Cryon, and you come and you have this mountaintop experience, and then you leave and it's gone. That is human nature. There is no admonishment. It's human nature. You have to unlearn that and understand that the energy that you feel here, are you ready? I want you to take this home with you. The energy you feel here, imbued into you, can be permanent. You take it home. All of the information that has been presented goes into that, which is that, your psyche. And you may not remember all of the facts and the figures, perhaps even the concepts or the names. But it all went in. And you can't undo it. You heard it, you reacted to it. That's permanent if you wish it to be. And you carry around what you've learned from it, or the feelings you had when you learned it. You don't have to repeat it to anyone. You don't have to repeat it to yourself. You don't have to run home and write it down. It's in there at some level. You realize that. This is an experience that has gone into your psyche and stays. And the invitation in this shift, in this new age, is to take it to yourself and put it metaphorically into your heart in a way that it can pour out at any time, in any place, in the same fashion that you received it today. But let it pour out in that which is experiential. You run into a situation which is hurting your heart, or worse, it is confrontational, or something that is designed to make you uncomfortable or angry or fearful. And at that point in time, you can either go to those places or you can go to this place. And if you go to this place in those situations, let it pour out. And in that time, you react differently than is expected. Your reaction is kindness or compassion or understanding or perhaps even silence. When you're expected to react, you don't. Instead, you observe and you think about what could I do, which is the most benevolent thing at this point in time. And sometimes, dear ones, it's nothing. So instead of responding, reacting, defending, or any of those things, sometimes it's nothing. And there are those who will say, there's that person who will not then defend themselves. And I'll tell you, a master does not defend themselves. And a master often will be silent, even though there are those around him who will say, well, that's a sign of weakness. I'll tell you what it's a sign of. It's a sign of mastery. And in their mind, that weakness that they see is old energy response conditioning. You didn't do what they expected in an old energy that an old energy human being would do. What you do instead is something that you know is appropriate for the time and sacred for the time, no matter what they think, no matter what they do next. This is the new human. To understand that you take these things with you and you live on a day-by-day basis with them. I was telling my partner, he was playing church, and this is what it is. You dress up and go to a building and you hear a channeling in a situation and whatever, and you leave. Until the next time, not understanding that you're supposed to take it with you. And he was guilty of the same thing. He was turning me on and off in his life as a channel on stage to many, until I told him, you can't do that. It's time for me to be with him all the time. There'll be situations where I speak through him and you're not aware of his channeling. And this happens constantly. It may happen tomorrow. This is what he carries, dear ones. That is in addition to what you think you see. That is what appears sometimes when he is not necessarily ready for it. But he is aware of it. And slowly he changed to the one that you see now. And that'll be different even next year and the next year and the next year. Because these things then graduate. So let me tell you about yourself. There is a system where the light starts to increase. And this is the metaphor from yesterday. And that light starts to increase within you by itself because you're using it. Now, this is not a three-dimensional idea. In 3D, anything that you put inside of you is usually then used. And you have to put it in again and again. Or in the case of a lamp that you have to restore the kerosene, it burns up. And then you have to fill it up again. This particular idea is a human being three-dimensional concept paradigm. What I'm telling you now is that the light that you carry today and the things that you learn every day will start to grow within itself. It'll grow by itself. And the maturity and the things that you learn along the way may come through your intuition, and you never come to a meeting like this again. And you'll start understanding things are changing within me, you'll say. And I don't know what is next or how it's working, but I seem to be in a gradual state of awareness. And it's changing how I feel even about those I'm with. This is Hugh. Because this is the new lighthouse. A lighthouse that generates more light than is available. Did you hear that? Where 2 + 2 = 5, and then it's 6, and then it's 7. Self-generating light. And that's because you looked, dear ones. This is where those who are with you come into play. We told you in a previous channel in this room that you come in with an entourage. And that when you start to avail it, and you start to then have energy from it, and you start to say yes, and you ask for guidance, and it starts to work in your life, that's because they are feeding you with more light. This is the entourage that you ask for that slowly, with you, starts to give you more than you thought was there. And you start to understand, I'm more than the sum of the parts. And what that means is I seem to have more light, more awareness. Things are happening in my life that I didn't even know that I could create. And that's because you're learning to create them. Some of you are receiving things you didn't even ask for, but you did at a certain level. As soon as you say yes to one thing, dear ones, the guides and the angels will give you as much as you can take. Did you hear that? As soon as you say yes to Spirit, which is to say, I am interested, the guides will pour to you all that you can accept. Some are saying, I'm getting more than I ask for. No, you're not. Learn to deal with it. No, you're not. Some are starting to realize, who are new to this, that you're coming into what you're here for. Can you imagine my partner's whole idea of what was going on when he sat in that chair when he was in his mid-40s? When his career had been established? When some people are actually starting to plan for retirement in 20 years? His life started over. And he actually said to Spirit, I'm too old to start something. And I told him, you have plenty of years, and I'll give you more the longer you do it. And now he understands all of that. He understands that the energy levels are being given as needed, as needed. He understands all that I told him from so many years ago, and it took him a long time, that you're never too old to start. And then when I told him what he would do the next time he arrived on the planet, he understood and realized that everything he does to his last breath is a preparation for what's to come. And that is another concept that you do not want to think about. Because you think of your own self and your own personal idea of who you are as in this life. Because the next life is hidden from you. The concept, perhaps, of changing and coming and going and becoming young again and all the things that you look forward to are hidden completely. They're not in your psyche. This is the way it should work, so that you're on your own this lifetime, not knowing what happened last time or the next time, not having any idea. On your own, meaning it's time now for you to make the decisions this lifetime. Is it possible that this light that you carry enhances your biology to the point where you'll live longer because of it? And the answer is yes. And here is why. These things I have talked about only briefly before. Is there a consciousness in your cells? The answer is yes. It has a name, and you've used it loosely, and it's called innate. Your cells represent a smart body. It is the attribute that homeopathy counts on. There's so many things that talk to innate or smart body, dear ones. And one of them is your own consciousness. When you give the affirmations that you give out loud, you are addressing that which is your smart body, your cellular structure, even your subconscious. All of those things, you will say, and a psychologist would say, are not addressable directly. That there have to be other things you do that help address them, and they'd be correct. So in that, I am telling you that your cells are intelligent beyond what you give them credit for. I'll say this again, and I've said it before. A human being in an older energy tends to live in their head. That's where everything is. That's where you hear everything, taste everything, see everything, all the pleasure centers, it's all there. And they tend to look down at the rest of their body and say, I hope it works and I hope it makes it. Thinking that they are only with their brain. Very, very common. And this is then enhanced by every single medical commercial you see on television. You're not responsible, it's not your fault, so you have to then drug yourself to make that body work. So your very own society enhances this old energy paradigm. The truth is this, it's a whole body experience right down to your toenail. They all know who you are. Every single cell is waiting for the boss to talk to it. And we've given this message so many times, but in this time, it's slightly different. This intelligent body knows of your awareness. If you wish to talk to it, it helps a lot. If you wish to take this light you have and then spread it around your cells and your body, to thank every organ, to thank every limb, to actually address your body, thank you for working with me. Thank you for all you're doing, cells. Together, we're going to live a long time. And what happens is this message plus the affirmations goes into the system of health in you. And balance starts to occur. Not only balance, intuitive ideas of what to change in your life that might help will also occur. Perhaps that is eating different. Perhaps that is moving to another place. All of these things come from your cellular structure, talking to your innate, talking to your intuition, and it goes right into that mind of yours, and you get an idea. That's your cellular structure talking to you. And so I'll say it again. Light workers will live longer if they accept the meld, and they understand what that is, and they cognize God as a partner. Not as a deity in the sky who's going to reward or punish them later, but as a partner in life to the degree that they cannot separate themselves from this wonderful, beautiful feeling of God, of Spirit, of a creative source. Oh, if you could see yourself as we see you, it'd take your breath away. We have known you for eternity. Soul, you were created in love. Soul, you were created to be a part of the soup that is the creation itself, filled with love, compassion. And we all have our hands out in this shift, saying, please, at some point in time, take a look at what's really there. How old you might be, how wise you might be, what you've been through, not here, but in many universes to precede this one. And how long you will exist after that. Eternal you are in both directions. And in all of this, you might see your magnificence and gasp at how beautiful we see you. And that might influence who you think you are. And what will happen next in your life. Or what you can do you didn't think you could do. And that's so much. Light is so powerful in these dark times. Darkness will run away from you wherever you walk. Eventually, and that's called mastery. And mastery is not that which means walking on the water and attracting millions. It means one day at a time with God as your partner. And a love that doesn't go away, and joy that doesn't go away. And help when you need it. And a longer lasting life. That's how we see you. And the message is, please see yourself in the same way. And when you do, you'll know exactly what this message is all about. I am Cryon in love with humanity. And so it is.
we are going to go into the circle of 12, and my intention for all of us, and it's the same for me, is to have new levels of awareness and to deepen the connection that I already feel. I want to have that deeper and enhanced. So is everyone okay with that kind of an intention as we go to the circle of 12? So with that, I invite you to close your beautiful, precious eyes. And in closing our eyes, it's a signal that we are now looking within. We are no longer looking outside. Because all the questions, all the wonderings, all the things we want answers for can be found within. And as we close our eyes and look within, we are giving the intention that we wish to come closer to the core essence that we hold within ourselves. We give intention that we increase our levels of awareness. We give intention to enhance our connection with the Creator. We give an intention of increasing the capacity of our heart to receive love. We give intention that as our heart increases and expands in receiving love, that we transmit it to everyone we meet. We give the intention to hold that frequency, that vibration within our being. So that as we move forward in our lives, from this point on, we are always at this frequency and vibration, which gives us a new starting point to go even further, to connect even deeper. And we recognize that no one is our enemy, no one is our friend. Everyone is here as teachers to teach us more about love. And as we learn more about love, truly, what is love? What does love mean to you? And whatever that interpretation, I'm sure the Creator has a love for us 10,000-fold of what we can truly understand. And so we ask to connect, to come closer, to be the living embodiment of our true nature. And with that, dearest Cryon, we are ready.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Cryon. Come a little closer. This is an invitation to do something that we have been doing now for over a year. It's something that is radically new. You have all perhaps participated, or most of you, in that which would be a guided meditation or prayer, where you're asked perhaps to envision yourself somewhere doing something. But this is one that takes you to a place, if you want to call it that. It takes you to an energy that there are many who say you cannot go there. And that particular energy that you go to is something now which is allowed. And I mean allowed because the veil is thin enough. And that is your doing, dear ones. There have been no rules set that says you cannot or can do something. This is your decision. This is the balance of dark and light on the planet. That balance on the planet, which we will call the ratio of dark and light, is you. What you have allowed in the past and now. There have been those who would say, well, it has never changed, and human nature is human nature, and it will always be the same. Over time, and perhaps over lifetimes, things change, and you don't acknowledge them because you don't remember them. You don't remember being there. All you have is the short lifetime you have. And that's not long enough to see some of the remarkable changes and what you might think is appropriate or not appropriate. We've talked about some of the remarkable changes that have occurred just in the last few years. But look at what's happened in the last few hundred years. There was a time when your ancestors, even the countries perhaps that founded the USA, would gather in the courtyard and bring their families and their picnic lunches in order to watch a beheading. And that was entertainment. It's come a long way. Your compassion and your integrity of what is appropriate and not appropriate and what you should see and what the children should see has changed greatly. And this is your evolution. And you've had one, and it's been grand. And it continues even now. You're starting to ask yourself questions. And those questions are the right ones, dear one. I'll say this now to all of you. Let the seeds be planted in these 4 days so that you can further examine truth. Did you miss something? Is there something you should reconsider? Is there something that now will take on a different perspective because you cannot unknow what you've seen in these 4 days? And that's on purpose. It is nothing that you are asked to join, if you've noticed. It's an awareness level of humanity itself. It's personal at the same time that it's collective. What you're going to be asked to participate in is something that is not linear. And that is difficult for so many. The linearity of your life is what you count on. Things being in the certain place, working a certain way. And as we've discussed before, all of you are multidimensional, living in 4 of many. I'll say that again in different words so you know what I mean. If there were all manner of colors around you, but somehow you have lived in a black and white life, that is a sample of what I'm saying. Your 4 dimensions are just a piece of the reality that really is around you. And as you start to awaken to more of what is around you, the world starts to develop in color. And you start seeing what you could not see before. That is the sample, the metaphor, for what we're presenting today. There is a new ability that you have allowed because there is more light now for you. And that's the ability for you to peek into that which is your own sacredness. And we're doing that in an exercise of reality. Is it possible for you to cross a bridge that takes you to a multidimensional space and understand it? To feel that it's real for you and not fake and not fantasy. Because it is real. And if you wish to participate in this reality, we ask you to consider that it's real. How many of you are aware that in your mind you can go somewhere? And that somewhere that you could go in your mind can even take over from where you sit or where you lay. And you can participate in a fantasy world almost completely with dialogue with people and things. And it's not even a dream. And if any of you have had this situation, you know what multidimensionality is. For there you are, sitting in the chair and at the same time participating in something very real, which you have created. And that's what this is. You don't leave here. You expand your consciousness and find yourself within you. And the metaphor for doing this is to cross a bridge. And that bridge is the cross between the known and the unknown. Difficult it is for any human being to go where they never have gone before and feel total comfort. That total comfort only comes with knowing. And so that's why we do what we do, and we call this a safe place. This is you going across a bridge to visit the bigger part of you. No harm is there. There is nothing there that can harm you or jump out at you or in any way influence you, because it's you. What we're going to ask you to do is an elementary, brief journey into your own soul. Journeying into your own soul is not anything you've ever been taught. It's not something that has been in a list of some things that would enhance you. It's new. And in this, there is criticism that perhaps it's not appropriate. Oh, it's appropriate. Because the energy of today is begging for you to know more about your own magnificence. The more you know about who you might be, old soul, new soul, will start to plant a seed in you and question what you're doing, what you might be able to do. But the main reason for all of this is so that you understand the system of love that put you here, that you're part of, and that you continue to be part of. None of you came to be a victim on this planet. And now you know that, and you know that perhaps that's how it's felt. You also have the tools of mastery to go beyond it. And for the rest of your life, understand you're in control of what happens to you. You truly are. That is the system. There are those who say, well, I don't believe that. Things happen. Chance happens. Accidents happen. How would you like to have an intuition of the accident and go around it? That's you creating your own reality. That's the field in work, in a way that most don't understand. It's you projecting yourself in a way that truly you light your own path, and the potholes are not in your path. There's a bridge that you're going to cross if you choose to come with me. And the bridge is a symbol only. And in your mind, it can be as large or as small as you wish, or as long or short. But at the middle of the bridge, there is a mist that you have to walk through. Some even have seen a gate you have to open. But it's all symbology for your pure intent to do this. To go from something that is comfortable in the chair and say, I wish to expand my reality today. I wish to go across a metaphoric bridge through the mist and into my own soul for a little adventure. And that adventure will be different every time I go there, and it will be a teaching adventure, a loving adventure, or perhaps a healing adventure. And it's always good. But it shows me a little more about myself. The bridge looms before all of you in whatever form you see it. It's there, the mist is there, and you can see that if you choose. To some it's frightening because you cannot see beyond the mist. And you're comfortable in your chair, so why should you go there? It's the same reason that you would go anywhere to enjoy something that has been unattainable before, that's meaningful, lovely, and safe. So right now, I'm going to ask you to take my hand and come with me. Together we cross this bridge and we go through the mist. And so many will say, is this real or is simply a guided meditation? And I invite you to see the reality of this. Multidimensionality is as real as the chair you sit upon. And eventually you'll understand the things that perhaps are unseen are as real as the things you can see and touch and work with. Ask any physicist about reality, and they will pause and ask you, are you ready for the real story? There's so much more than what you see. And there is. And in this spiritual realm, you'll also find the physics of this reality. Nothing works in this across the bridge as it does where you sit. Nothing. And a peek into your soul is a peek into the mechanism, perhaps, the systems of your magnificence, of your time on the planet, or even perhaps before that. Your soul, dear ones, is eternal. It was created, if you want to say created, at the same time God was created, if you want to say created. You see, for you, dear ones, everything was created. Everything in your linearity has to have a beginning and an end. No matter what you think about, it has a beginning and an end. But God does not. God always was and always will be. In a circle, God is. And so are you. Because the souls of all on this planet and everywhere in the universe are part of the creative source. Not created separately, but part. That means you always were and always will be. This explains the incredible love that you feel for the masters who walked before on this planet, who told you what you could do and showed you what you could do, who were here for that reason, totally for that reason, to plant seeds that you were grander and more magnificent than you were ever told. And here you are today with some of those tools, starting to learn those tools. And you cross the mist with me and you see whatever you choose to see next. This is not a test, dear ones. This is you relaxing and being quiet and being open to what might happen next. You are inside your own divinity. If such a thing is possible, you are experiencing your own sacredness, something you were never told you had. To a degree you never were told you had. It goes way beyond walking around on the planet. Even walking around happy on the planet. This goes beyond that. You start to see your own eternalness at some way. And you start to be comfortable, very comfortable. Maybe even smile a little at what is there. Wow. Wow. If you started looking around, you'd start to see that in your own reality there are many doors. The doors aren't doors at all. They just say they're openings to things you can know and learn. All things right now often are metaphoric to your linearity, so you'll understand them. This is what Spirit does, to paint a simple picture of complex things so that you won't be afraid, and so you'll understand more about what you're seeing and knowing. And eventually, what you see and know will simply be presented as energy. You're invited right now to listen and hear, if you wish, the things that you're never allowed to hear. Dear ones, when you're on this side of the veil, there is a continuing song that is always playing. We sing your name in light when you're not here. When you're not here in 3D, and in this place, in this soul that you are in, your own magnificent place, you're allowed some things that you only hear when you're not here. And that hearing is you listening to the sacredness of yourself and the celebration that we have for you. Everything here is a celebration of you. And when you are not here on this planet, dear ones, between incarnations, dear ones, there's only joy because you are with God. When you are not on this planet living here and you are on the other side, between incarnations, there's only beauty. No strife. And that's where you are right now. Can you imagine? Dropping all of the fears and all of the things that bother you and pester you and are in your brain so often that may have happened on this planet, or worries that you have. They're gone. You crossed the bridge and you gave intent. They're gone. And here you are. Pure. Beautiful. And you don't look the way you look now. I'm going to take you through a door, a portal. The door has a name on it that you cannot read. It's your name in light. It only identifies the door, not you necessarily, because all things are yours here. All things. Now this is a metaphor for you entering into a teaching session. More than a teaching session, it's a revelation. And you go into that door and there is a theater in the round before you. A theater in the round is common. The structure, the way it is presented is common. There's an audience that is around it, but you have to go down into the audience and onto the round stage. For the stage is low and the audience is above it. And something is going to happen. Every single time we do this, there's a teaching. And in the audience, there's, let's say, surprises. So we invite you alone and collectively to go down into the audience where you cannot see any of those who are there and onto the stage. And you will see a chair. One chair. So interesting, those who are linear will say, well, the theater in the round, when I sit in the chair, I'm only facing one part of the audience. And I'll tell you, you're facing all of the audience. Remember, this is multidimensional. The chair faces all directions at once. Can you go there with me? That's just one of the metaphors that you have to assimilate that's different from 3D. When you sit in the chair, you face all directions. And you sit in the chair. The chair itself and you sitting are metaphors. It means that you are comfortable and you're about to receive. Like you would sit in a chair and watch something entertaining, perhaps, instead of standing and expecting then to deliver something. You sit in the chair. What happens next, I will tell you about. And I'll try to describe it to you. There starts to be applause. And as the lights start to come up in the audience, you see that there are several hundred, perhaps more, individuals in the chairs. Now I'm going to reveal something. This particular circle of 12, given live this day in this place, is an expose of only the ones who are in this room. And there are those who can listen in, but they're listening to those experiencing who are in this room. This is for you. It's different. It's different because this one is presented here in person for you to hear and experience and understand and know. And here you are, within your soul, on a stage, metaphorically, and there's applause starting to occur. And it builds, and you realize that all of the audience somehow knows who you are, and they're applauding you, they're celebrating you. And it's not a mild applause. It's almost like a finale applause. It's wild. You're a celebrity in their minds, in their hearts, whoever they are. And the applause continues until you're finally seated. It started when you entered and continued until you sat in the chair. How do you feel about that? You don't even know who they are, and they're applauding. Now, this is just the beginning of something I want you to really, truly feel and understand. Who are these in the audience? As the applause dies down, the lights come up, and you start to see, and you start to recognize at some level who they are. And it starts to take your breath away, because this is something you did not expect, ever. Ever. Every single one of them is you in a past life. Male, female, children. How could there be children? That will tell you that these were children who died early. You, who came and went early in this life in order to give your parents, perhaps, a lesson. And you were part of that, and you agreed to it, and you selected it before you got here. Each one of them is looking at you. And collectively, there is a consciousness and a message that they're giving to you. And that is this. You went through all of these lifetimes in very old energies, dear ones. Very old energies. Some of you died early. Some of you just went till your 40s, and that was about it back then. There's a whole lot of young people in this audience, and you start to realize what you went through. You start to recognize one by one your own lifetimes, and the message comes in. And the message is profound. The reason you're celebrated and the reason there's applause is because you made it. You went into a time in this lifetime where it could have been a world war, and you went anyway. This could have been the end. You could have died horribly in a nuclear holocaust, and you didn't. Instead, you came in knowing full well that it could go either way. And now you're sitting in a new age, truly. An age where ascension is a possibility for the planet's consciousness, where it starts to raise itself and realize things it never realized before, where there will be no more war, where there will be some compassion and love, and that will then graduate into higher realms over the next lifetimes. But it started here. And all of your lifetimes on this planet were a culmination and a target right now to you here in the chair. And I'll tell you that all of those lifetimes of you are grinning from ear to ear. You made it. We made it, they say. It was worth it, they say. And the next thing that happens will keep you there for months, if you wish. One by one, they start to come on stage, and you recognize and you discuss what happened and what was there, and you remember and you remember and you remember, and there are tears remembering yourself and what you went through and the joys and the children you had. And then they'll go and sit down, and another one will come, and another one will come, and another one will come. How many lifetimes do you think you've had? Hundreds. Old soul. The ones in this room who did not participate in that many will still have some they do. It doesn't diminish. And the number you had is not important. What's important is that you recognize your magnificence right now of being here, of the lineage that you have on the planet. You deserve this. This is yours. This is your time. And you're on that stage with all of this esoteric energy of you and your past lives, enjoying it, realizing it, and sharing it. And realizing this is you with you. There are no angels or no guides right now, dear ones. It's just you with you, sitting in the most special, sacred place you could ever sit, in the middle of your soul, where all things are possible. I want you to hold this thought, because these are the kinds of things that we are doing now and giving you. And in the process, perhaps, you'll understand your importance. And in the process, you might even start to understand that you can heal yourself of anything that's inappropriate, including fear, judgment, forgiveness. All of those things slough away right now when you think about your past and what you've gone through. But how magnificent you are today and what you can do from now on that is so different from anything you've done up to this point. Dear ones, we invite you to stay. Even though this meeting will terminate, there's a piece of you outside of time that can stay in this specific place, if you want to call it that, for as long as you want, or return there in your dreams as much as you want, and feel the appreciation that God feels for you to have gone this far and done these things, and come out with the light. There is light on this planet happening, dear ones. We've told you. It will show itself. You'll see. I'm Cryon, in love with humanity. Stay. And so it is.